Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Sean Mackie Show. He's so unpredictable. Mother Nature calls him for advice. Oh, all right, ladies and gentlemen, season number 2, episode number 18 of the Sean Mackie Show. We recap the Bears versus the Eagles. Kind of got to get a little rocky in there. Playing in Philly. Dare I say Bears dominate? No, I don't, but didn't they though? Just a little bit? I want to say yes. The score, it was 24-15, but, woohoo! Saw some really good things happen here. Bears versus Eagles. 2 games within 1 calendar week. Puts the Bears at 9-3. I'm freaking out. I don't know how to handle it. I got to get in. I got to do my shows. But, man, I'm thinking about it all. I'm digesting it all. I'm cautiously optimistic about the 9-3 record. I am recording this episode a mere hours before the Bears kick off against the Green Bay Packers. And what's on the line today? Top seed in the North. Solidify your top seed in the NFC. A 10-3 record for first-year head coach Ben Johnson. Last episode, recapping the Steelers, I said I saw some good things. The team is gelling a little bit here. Still one player kind of just, is he regressing? Is he progressing? He's doing some things right because he's keeping his team in games. And he's winning these games last minute, last second. But I don't know. Do I want to see some better things from the quarterback play from Caleb Williams? Right now, this dude is like last in the NFL in passer rating or some shit, but he's got the team at number 1. And if he ends up like last in passer rating, quarterback rating, whatever the stat was, and the Bears still hold on to the number 1 seed, it'll be like a record. But I don't know if those are records you want to have. The last time the Bears had a bottom 5 quarterback in rating lead them to a Super Bowl was Grossman, I think in 2006. That's not a real record that you want to have. Bears still 7 penalties, only for 44 yards against the Eagles. But, I'm going to say that was a dominant performance. When you look at the box score at this, the Bears scored in every quarter except the third. They were shut out in the third. But they held the Eagles scoreless in the first quarter. Held them to 1 field goal in the second quarter. 2 field goals in the third quarter and 2 field goals in the fourth quarter. That to me was a pretty dominant performance by the defense. Okay. So the Bears end up with 425 total yards on the day to the Eagles 317. Eagles more passing yards than the Bears. We know the Bears had way more rushing yards than the Eagles. 281 rushing yards put up by that Bears duo of Monangai and Swift. And you've got to give credit to that offensive line. They're getting on their blocks. They're maintaining their blocks. They are winning the battle up front. And that's the thing I'd said for the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. If you don't win the battle up front with your offensive line, you're not going to win many football games. And that offensive line is getting it done. The Bears had 28 first downs to the Eagles 14. They were 10 of 17 on third down efficiency, 1 of 3 on fourth down efficiency. And the Eagles were held in check on fourth down, 0 fourth downs, 0 conversions. The Bears solved, dare I say it, for 1 week, the tush push. Nashawn Wright coming in and stripping and recovering that ball on the tush push. Changes the momentum a little bit for the Bears. All right. Love it. Gotta love it. Love to see it. So The Bears had a really good first half. They end the first half 10-3. They were in control. They had already racked up over 140 yards rushing, right? But there's some things we got to talk about here. I know. Oh, and you know what? I said that the Bears held them to 2. That was a touchdown. That one of those 6 points that the Eagles put up in the third or fourth quarter, I believe that was a touchdown, and they missed the extra point or something. So I don't even think it was, because they did have that. I think that was the touchdown that AJ Brown just made a really hell of a catch against, and I think it was against Nashawn Wright. But Nashawn Wright almost was able to pick that ball off too, as well. And then we had a Bears player, I feel, defensively kind of kept that drive alive, and he ends up being one of my chumps for this week, I do believe, because something he did eventually led to that Eagles TD. Save the missed extra point. That gives the Bears at that point a 10-9 lead in the third quarter. So yes, they didn't miss that extra point, but there was something defensively that happened that I did not like, and I feel it eventually led to that touchdown for the Eagles. Williams did have a few receivers lose their footing, to contribute to a couple of missed passes, but he's still missing the easy throws, and he seems to panic a bit. He was very quick on 2 occasions to throw the ball at the feet of his running back the second he felt or saw pressure. I don't know. Did he see something that immediately confused the shit out of him, and they knew the play wasn't going to work? So boom, he just clocks it, and I don't know, but as I mentioned before, he seemed to panic a tad. He does miss a wide open Roma Dunze in the end zone on an underthrown ball. He threw the ball short. And at one point in that game against the Eagles, had a 33.3 rating. And there was a point where he's throwing a pass right into the head of the Philly defensive lineman. Bounces off. Thank goodness it wasn't picked off. And then he did throw that interception to the defensive lineman, which I thought was going to be a game changer for the Eagles. That really had me nervous after he threw the pick to the defensive lineman. And to me, it looks like what I see is he's not getting that level 2 throw. It's like, it seems like he's throwing everything all on that straight line, that level 1. That level where you're going to hit guys out on the check down or out on the short screen pass. You've got that main level right there. But when he's trying to go downfield 10 or 15 yards, you got to get that level 2 on there so you don't doink the goddamn helmet of the defensive lineman or throw an interception to a defensive lineman. Holy crap. On a check down screen. I really thought the Bears would lose that game because of this. Until, oh yes, and that's where we get our first champ of the game against the Eagles, Nashawn Wright, for the strip and recovery on the famed tush push, which happens a few more plays as the Eagles are trying to go down and drive after that interception to the D lineman. Again, big game changer right there for the Chicago Bears. I've got to go with a champ, a chump, an ain't, a great, a stud, a dud. But I got to give some love to that offensive line. 2 running backs over 100 yards for the day. That offensive line led the Bears to 47 carries, 281 yards. DeAndre Swift, 18 carries for 125 yards. And Kyle Monangai, 22 carries for 130 yards, who will also be included as my 2 other champs for that day against the Eagles. Completely dominated the Eagles in that game on the ground. You know, I think this is the game that Ben Johnson came out afterwards and said basically like, you know, we're winning in spite of our passing game. We're not quite really where we need to be with the passing game, and he wasn't happy. So hopefully we'll see some changes being made. But you know what? With that being said, with all the issues and the troubles Caleb Williams having, he's still only a year two quarterback. He still has to mature. He still has to grow. We see little bits and pieces of this every week, but then we see more bits and pieces of the guy we don't want to be running our team. You know, so we'll have to see what happens. But here is something that you all ought to know. Caleb Williams currently has a TD to interception ratio of 3.6 to 1. He has 36 TDs, 10 interceptions through his first 28 starts. Here are some other notable quarterbacks that had those same kind of numbers. I'll let you be the judge after you hear this list. Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Tom Brady. Tom Brady. I am not saying anything else after that. It's a nice little stat. It's some good company that Caleb Williams keeps. So my champs for this game, Nashawn Wright, the Bears offensive line, DeAndre Swift, and Kyle Monangai. My chumps. All right. Now, the Bears defensive line, they held Barkley in check, but 4 players from that offensive line graded out as the worst defensive players for the Chicago Bears. Andrew Billings, Austin Booker, Jonathan Ford, and Gervon Dexter. And here's the play I felt was stupid by Gervon Dexter. The stupid roughing the passer call on Dexter, right? That I think that at that point when he gets that call, we were maybe looking at a 3rd and long for the Eagles. But yet that gives them a first down. And you know what, Gervon? You were nowhere near him to even try to attempt to say that your momentum carried you into the quarterback or that you were 1.5 steps away. When you look at that replay, you were like 3 steps away. You kind of looked around and then boom, you went up there and you gave him the little bump. Well, they threw the flag on your ass. They give the Eagles the first down. That eventually leads to the A.J. Brown touchdown, I believe. And you were just way too far away for that hit on Hurts to be legal. Stop it. Stop it right now with the stupid BS penalties that put your team in a hole. And that goes for all y'all, offense and defense. All right. So that's really my only 2 chumps for this week. Well, I guess you could say 6 if you're going to talk about the 4 guys who were, well, 5 maybe, because Gervon, he was a chump because of the roughing the passer, but he's also one of the poorly graded out players. So he's one and the same. So you go with him, Ford, Booker, and Billings. That's 4 guys. And then the entire defensive line. Yes, they held Barkley in check, but too many guys not making the cut right there, not really doing what they need to do to solidify their dominance right now in the NFC and, dare I say, the NFL. All right. Again, cautiously optimistic about this team. We will see how it plays out against the Packers. Hell, I've been joking with some friends, and I said, you know, it didn't matter what coach we got in here. We could go 2-15 for 5 years in a row as long as those 2 wins every year came against the Packers. There's a lot of Chicago Bears fans that would be happy. This was at one point where the head-to-head matchups or some shit, like the Bears had an 81-game lead over the Packers, and then ever since Aaron Rodgers took over the Packers before leaving, he kind of gets them right back up there to where they're almost like neck and neck now in head-to-head wins. So we got to get some and pick up some momentum and ground, and we got to start keeping the Green Bay Packers out of the win column when they play us, the Chicago Bears. All right. So that's all the little recap I got going on for the Eagles Bears game. This week's forgotten NFL legend is Elroy Leon Hirsch. You might know him as Crazy Legs. Crazy Legs Hirsch. He's an American professional football player. He's a sports executive. And guess what? The dude was an actor. We've seen a lot of former pro football players go on to have some really good success. In Hollywood, Crazy Legs didn't get crazy. It's not like he went out there and then totally transitioned into acting. But he is credited on the IMDb website for a few roles as himself, or as an actual character. He was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1967 and in the College Football Hall of Fame in 1974. Crazy Legs was a first-team All-Pro in 51 and 53, and he was named to the National Football League 1950s All-Decade Team, and he was selected a member of the NFL 50th Anniversary All-Time Team in 1969 and the NFL 100th Anniversary All-Time Team in 2019. All right. Elroy Crazy Legs Hirsch begins his football career with the Chicago Rockets, who were an American football team that played in the All-American Football Conference, the AAFC. We've talked about this conference before with a few of our other forgotten NFL legends. He was a Chicago Rocket from 1946 to 1949. During the 49 season, the team was known as the Chicago Hornets. Unlike the Cleveland Browns, San Francisco 49ers, and the Baltimore Colts, the franchise did not join the National Football League prior to the 1950 season. So the Chicago Rockets, Chicago Hornets, they kind of go away. I'm pretty sure we could figure out why a team out of Chicago did not join the NFL in 1950 because, well, we got our team there already. We didn't need another team taking over some of the rights and the bragging rights, right? We had our own team there. Hirsch served in the United States Marine Corps from 44 to 46, and he had a brief career as a motion picture actor in the 1950s. He was the general manager for the Rams from 1960 to 69, and he was the athletic director for the University of Wisconsin from 69 to 1987. All right. Some of the films that Crazy Legs Hirsch starred in during the 1950s was a movie called, oddly enough, Crazy Legs, a motion picture released in November of 53, focusing on Elroy Leon Hirsch's life as a football player at Wausau High School and the universities of Wisconsin and Michigan. Hirsch played himself as the lead in that film. Well, of course he would. Why would you find somebody else, right? Okay. Apparently, a movie critic named John Scott wrote of Hirsch's performance as an actor is both likable and believable. He does very well in his first film role. That's awesome. Guy probably could have went on to have a great career in Hollywood. I'm still waiting for Peyton and Eli Manning to get a sitcom. The premise is there. Brothers who are former NFL players. The two together, I would watch that sitcom. I'm just saying, of all the guys that go from like the NFL or the NBA to become actors in Hollywood, I think it's time that the Manning brothers stop doing commercials and pitch a damn sitcom. Why the hell did Eli Manning not get the role as Chad Powers in Chad Powers, a character he basically created? I don't know. Does Eli feel like he's not that good of an actor? I'd have watched it. I might still watch Chad Powers. I know the Manning brothers kind of produce it, but I think you got to give that role to Eli. I don't know. I don't know. All right. He was in a movie called Unchained, a prison drama that was released in July of 55. It was actually shot at a correctional facility in Chino, California. He played the lead as a prisoner in a prison without bars or armed guards. All right. In that film, Hirsch's character planned an escape but changed his mind because he was influenced by another prisoner. All right. That film introduces the theme song Unchained Melody, which was sung by Todd Duncan. He also starred in 0 Hour, an airline disaster movie released in November of 57. He played the pilot who became incapacitated with the co-pilot and many passengers after eating tainted fish served on the in-flight meal. All right. 0 Hour was later used as the basis, including much of the original dialogue for the Zucker Brothers parody film, Airplane. Looks like I picked the wrong day to stop smoking crack, or whatever the line is, right? In that movie, we see another former athlete getting a starring role in that movie, and one Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who played the co-pilot in Airplane. Hirsch also appeared as himself in a 1956 episode of Captain Midnight television series and in a spot advertising Ovaltine milk. What else is famous for Ovaltine milk? 'Tis the season, folks. Here we are in December, a couple of weeks away, when you rush home to check the mailbox to see if you got your decoder ring so that you can decode the famous message in a Christmas story. Drink more Ovaltine. You motherfucker! I love that movie. Watch it every single year. And in 1965, in episode 29 of the television series The Munsters, entitled Herman the Rookie, Crazy Legs Hirsch is seen on the street discussing the Rams' need for a punter when a football kick by Herman hits Crazy Legs in the face. You know? Hey, I remember that episode. Herman Munster playing football. Some achievements for Elroy Crazy Legs Hirsch. He was a 2-time first-team All-Pro, 3-time Pro Bowl player, NFL receptions leader in 1951, the receiving yards leader in the NFL in 51, the NFL receiving touchdowns leader in 51, the scoring leader in 51. He did it all in 1951. He's on the 1950s All-Decade team, the NFL's 50th anniversary team. We know, we got all that, right? He's in the St. Louis Football Ring of Fame. He was a first-team All-Big Ten selection in 1942, a second-team All-Big Ten selection in 1943, and his Wisconsin Badgers number 40 was retired. Ladies and gentlemen, that's this week's forgotten NFL legend, Elroy Crazy Legs Hirsch. Go check out some of those films he was in. I bet you can find them on one of the streaming services. I'm absolutely sure of it. Absolutely, positively, sir. Yeah, that's my Herman Munster laugh. That's all you're going to get from me this week, folks. I'm out the door getting ready for that Bears-Packers game a little bit later. Hopefully, we'll get the next episode in a little sooner than we did the last two. Again, the Steelers and the Eagles playing, the Bears playing the Steelers and the Eagles within a 6-day span and going 9-3 with the dominant performance against the Eagles had me virtually speechless for over a week. I attempted to record these episodes 2 or 3 times just to sit here staring at the camera and go, what do you want to say? And then I'm afraid I didn't say enough. So I'm out. Peace. I'll see ya. Hey, if I made you laugh, made you think, or even made you smile, please tell all your friends. If I didn't, just keep that shit to yourself. Thanks for listening to The Shawn Mackie Show.